Hello, my loves, and welcome back to Tales of Love. If you're new here, I want to give you the warmest welcome. This is the place where passion, romance, and unforgettable stories come to life. If you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on the countless tales of love and desire I have waiting for you. Tonight, I promise you a story that will leave you breathless, a forbidden romance that blurs the lines between innocence and temptation. So sit back, relax, and let yourself be carried away. The title of tonight's story is The Boss's Son, Fire Forbidden Office Desire Turns into a Night She'll Never Forget. I still remember the night as if it had just happened. The ballroom glittered with golden chandeliers, laughter spilling through the air as champagne flutes clinked and music from the live band swirled around the room. The company party was in full swing, more extravagant than usual this year, with tables draped in silk and candles flickering on every surface. My boss, Mr. Hargrove, never did anything halfway, especially not when it came to impressing clients and showing off his wealth. I had been with the company for nearly 6 years, long enough to know the politics of these parties. Everyone wore their best smiles and most dazzling outfits, networking with just enough charm to disguise the undercurrent of competition. I was dressed in a sleek black dress that hugged my curves in all the right places, paired with heels that made me feel confident, bold, even a little dangerous. But nothing, not even the luxurious party or the music floating through the air, compared to the moment my eyes first landed on him. He stood near the bar, tall and effortlessly magnetic, his dark suit perfectly tailored, his tie loosened in a way that gave him a rebellious edge. His hair was thick and dark, slightly tousled as though he hadn't tried too hard, yet somehow looked devastatingly good. He laughed at something one of the executives said, and the sound of it was low, rich, and full of confidence. I didn't know who he was at first, only that I couldn't take my eyes off him. He had the kind of presence that made the rest of the room fade away, the kind of man who drew attention without even trying. And then, as though sensing my gaze, he looked up. Our eyes met across the room. It was one of those moments that felt scripted, like the world had slowed down just enough for me to notice the way his lips curved into the faintest smirk, the way his gaze lingered on me as though I were the only person in the room worth noticing. Heat pooled low in my stomach, unexpected and impossible to ignore. I turned away quickly, pretending to be far more interested in the champagne glass in my hand than in the stranger whose eyes had just stolen my breath. My pulse was racing, though, betraying me. Enjoying yourself? My coworker, Rachel, appeared at my side with her usual bubbly grin. Trying to, I answered, forcing a smile. Rachel leaned in slightly, her eyes darting toward the bar. I see you've noticed him. My brows rose. You know who he is? Her grin widened. Of course. Everyone here does. That's Daniel Hargrove, Mr. Hargrove's son. The words sank into me like a stone dropped in water. The boss's son. Suddenly, everything about him made sense. The confidence, the ease, the way he carried himself as though the entire room belonged to him. But with that realization came something else. Something more dangerous. Because the one rule I'd always kept for myself was simple: never blur lines at work. And definitely never get involved with anyone connected to my boss. But rules were much easier to write than to follow. As though fate wanted to test me, Daniel began making his way across the room. My breath caught, my chest tightening as I realized he was walking directly toward me. His stride was confident, casual, yet deliberate. He didn't look left or right, only at me. By the time he stopped in front of me, I felt my cheeks warm, my pulse thundering. He smiled, and I swear I nearly melted right there. Hi, he said, his voice smooth, deep, carrying just enough of a teasing lilt to make my stomach flutter. I don't believe we've met. I'm Daniel. I forced myself to breathe. I know. Yes, I've heard of you. I told him my name, my voice softer than I intended. His gaze lingered on me, studying me with an intensity that made me feel both exposed and desired. Then, slowly, his lips curved into a smirk. Beautiful name, he said. But somehow, I think you already knew I'd say that. I laughed nervously, my hand tightening on my champagne flute. Do you always walk up to women like this at your father's company parties? Only when they're so captivating I can't stop staring, he replied easily. The boldness of his words sent a rush of heat through me. He didn't hide his interest, didn't mask it with politeness or pretense. And I found myself wanting more of it, more of his attention, even though every voice in my head whispered that this was dangerous. Still, when he offered his arm and asked, "Would you like to take a walk with me? Get away from the noise for a while?" I found myself nodding. And just like that, the night began to change. Daniel guided me gently through the crowd, his hand resting lightly on the small of my back. Even through the fabric of my dress, I could feel the warmth of his palm, the steady confidence in his touch. Every nerve in my body seemed to be on high alert, my skin tingling, my breath a little uneven. The ballroom doors closed behind us, and suddenly the noise of laughter, clinking glasses, and music faded into a distant hum. The hallway was quiet, softly lit by golden sconces along the wall, the atmosphere intimate in a way that made my heart pound faster. This party has never been my favorite part of the year, Daniel admitted with a crooked grin, his voice low and velvety. But tonight feels different. I raised a brow, trying to hide the way his words stirred something inside me. Different how? He stopped walking, turning to face me fully. His eyes, deep and piercing, locked onto mine as though he were stripping away every layer of pretense. "Because of you." My breath caught. Simple words, yet the way he said them made my stomach twist with desire. His confidence was intoxicating, pulling me in even as my mind tried to whisper warnings. He was my boss's son. Nothing good could come from this. And yet, I didn't move away. We walked slowly down the hallway, the tension between us stretching, tightening. Our conversation slipped easily between teasing banter and moments of quiet intensity. He asked about my work, my passions, the things that made me light up. And he listened, really listened in a way most men never did. At one point, he leaned just a little closer, his arm brushing mine. The contact was barely there, but it sent sparks racing through my veins. "You're not like the others," he murmured, his lips close enough that I could feel his breath against my ear. "Everyone else here is playing a role, putting on a mask. But you're real. I like that." I swallowed hard, my pulse hammering. "You don't even know me." "Not yet," he said, his gaze darkening. "But I want to." We had wandered toward the far end of the hall where tall glass doors opened to a balcony overlooking the city skyline. The night air was crisp as he pushed the door open and gestured for me to step outside. I hesitated only a moment before following, the cool breeze brushing against my heated skin. The view was stunning, buildings glittering against the night, the moon hanging low and bright above us. But I barely noticed any of it. My entire focus was on the man standing just inches away, his eyes fixed on me as though he were memorizing every detail. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he asked softly. "The view." I managed, my voice unsteady. His lips curved into a knowing smile. "I wasn't talking about the view." My breath hitched. The air between us thickened, charged with something undeniable. I should have stepped back, created distance, reminded myself of the boundaries. But instead, I stayed frozen in place, caught in the magnetic pull of his presence. He reached up slowly, his fingers brushing a loose strand of hair from my cheek. The touch was feather-light, yet it set fire to my skin. My body leaned instinctively into his hand before I could stop myself. "Daniel," I whispered, not sure if it was a plea or a warning. His thumb traced gently along my jawline, and he tilted his head, studying me with eyes full of heat and intention. "Say my name again," he murmured, his voice husky. "Daniel." I breathed, the words spilling out of me without thought. He exhaled sharply, as though the sound of his name on my lips did something to him. And then, slowly, deliberately, he leaned closer. My heart raced, my lips parting in anticipation, every nerve in my body alive with the ache of wanting him. But at the very last second, he stopped. His lips hovered just a breath away from mine, his eyes locked on me with a teasing, wicked glint. "You want me to kiss you, don't you?" he whispered, his voice dark and delicious. Heat flooded my face, my chest, everywhere. I couldn't even form words, only nod faintly, caught in the spell he had cast over me. His lips curved into a slow, satisfied smile. Good. Because I've been wanting to kiss you since the moment I saw you. And then he closed the distance. The kiss was everything, soft yet demanding, tender yet filled with a hunger that matched my own. His lips moved against mine with a heat that stole my breath, his hand sliding to the back of my neck as though he couldn't bear to let me go. My fingers gripped his suit jacket, pulling him closer, needing more. When we finally broke apart, my chest was rising and falling quickly, my entire body trembling with desire. He rested his forehead against mine, his breath ragged. "This is insane," I whispered, though my voice lacked conviction. "Yes," he agreed, his lips brushing mine again. "But it feels so damn right." And standing there beneath the stars, wrapped up in his arms, I couldn't bring myself to argue. The kiss still lingered on my lips, sweet and intoxicating, as if it had rewired something inside me. I felt unsteady, as though one wrong move would send me tumbling headfirst into something I wasn't sure I could stop. Daniel pulled back only slightly, his hand still resting at the curve of my neck, thumb brushing against my skin in lazy circles. His eyes searched mine, dark with desire, yet softened by something else, something more tender, almost protective. "Tell me to stop," he murmured, his voice rough, like it cost him effort to say the words. I should have. Every part of me knew that crossing this line was dangerous, reckless, even. He was my boss's son, and nothing good could come from this. But the truth? I didn't want him to stop. Not even a little. "I can't," I whispered back, the admission slipping from me like a confession. That was all he needed. His lips crashed against mine again, hungrier this time, as though that sliver of hesitation had been holding him back. My back met the cold railing of the balcony, but I barely noticed. The warmth of his body pressed against mine consumed every sense. His hands roamed lower, skimming down my sides, resting on my hips as though he was memorizing the shape of me. I gasped softly into his mouth when his grip tightened, pulling me flush against him. The heat of his desire pressed against me through the fabric of his suit, leaving no doubt about what he wanted. "Daniel," I breathed, my voice trembling. He pulled back just enough to look at me, his lips swollen from our kisses, his gaze smoldering. "I've never wanted someone like this," he admitted, his honesty hitting me like a physical force. "I can't get enough of you." The rawness of his words made my chest ache, my resolve crumble further. My fingers tangled in his hair, pulling him back to me as though I couldn't stand a second of distance. Our mouths collided again, desperate, needy, every kiss growing hotter, deeper, until I was dizzy with it. The sound of laughter from inside the ballroom jolted me back to reality. For a moment, I remembered where we were, at a company party, with dozens of people just a few steps away. I broke the kiss, panting softly, my chest rising and falling against his. "We can't not here." Daniel's smile was slow, dangerous, almost wicked. "Then let's not stay here." Before I could respond, he took my hand, threading his fingers through mine with a possessive certainty that sent a thrill rushing through me. He led me back inside, but not toward the ballroom. Instead, we slipped down a quieter hallway, away from the crowd, our joined hands hidden between us like a secret we both burned to keep. Every step felt reckless, thrilling. My pulse raced with the anticipation of what might happen next. The further we went, the quieter it became, until we were standing outside an unused meeting room, its door slightly ajar. Daniel pushed it open, glancing back at me with a mischievous gleam. "Come in with me." Just for a moment. I hesitated only a fraction of a second before following him inside. The room was dimly lit, empty except for a long polished table and rows of chairs. He closed the door behind us, the soft click echoing in the silence. The air between us crackled. Neither of us spoke. We didn't need to. In 2 strides, he was on me again, pressing me gently but firmly against the wall. His mouth found mine with a hunger that stole my breath, his hands sliding along my waist, up my ribcage, until his fingertips brushed the edge of my bare shoulder. The sensation made me shiver, a soft sound escaping my lips before I could stop it. "You're driving me crazy," he whispered against my mouth, his breath hot and uneven. "Do you have any idea what you do to me?" "Yes," I admitted, my voice barely audible, my body arching toward him of its own accord. "Because you're doing the same thing to me." He groaned softly, a sound that sent fire coursing through me. His lips trailed from my mouth to my jaw, then lower, brushing against the sensitive spot just beneath my ear. I gasped, my fingers clutching at his jacket, pulling him closer. Every touch was electric, every kiss a spark threatening to ignite something far bigger than either of us could contain. The world outside that room no longer existed. It was just us, caught in the storm of a desire that refused to be denied. And deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. Daniel's lips trailed fire along my neck, and I couldn't stop the soft gasp that escaped me. His hands, bold now, roamed my body as though he'd been waiting years for this moment. Every stroke of his fingers made my skin tingle. Every kiss sent shivers rushing through me. I should have stopped him. I should have pushed him away. But the truth was I didn't want to. Every nerve in me screamed to give in, to let this forbidden desire finally take over. "Daniel," I whispered, my voice shaky with both need and nerves. He pulled back just enough to look at me, his eyes dark and full of heat. "Tell me to stop, and I will," he murmured, brushing his thumb over my swollen lower lip. "But if you want me as much as I want you," his words trailed off, his meaning crystal clear. My heart pounded wildly. I should have been scared, but instead, I felt alive, like every inch of me was burning with want. My answer was simple. I rose up on my toes and kissed him, hard, pouring every bit of longing I had into the kiss. That was all it took. With a low groan, he lifted me effortlessly, my legs wrapping around his waist as my back pressed against the cool wall. His mouth was relentless, kissing me like he needed me to breathe, his hands gripping me tightly, possessively. I could feel his arousal pressing against me, and it made my body ache with anticipation. He carried me to the long meeting table, setting me down gently but with urgency, never breaking the kiss. My hands fumbled at his jacket, pushing it off his shoulders, desperate to feel him without the barrier of fabric. He helped me, his own hands tugging at the zipper of my dress, sliding it slowly down my back. The cool air against my bare skin made me shiver, but his hands followed, warm and hungry, erasing any trace of hesitation. "God, you're perfect," he whispered, his eyes raking over me as my dress slipped down, pooling at my waist. Heat flooded my cheeks, but the way he looked at me, like I was the only woman in the world, made me bold. My hands slid down his chest, feeling the hard muscles beneath his shirt. I unbuttoned it clumsily, driven by urgency, and he helped until the fabric joined the rest on the floor. Skin against skin, the contact was electric. His mouth claimed mine again, his hands exploring with a hunger that made me ache. His lips traveled lower, kissing down my throat, across my collarbone, to the swell of my breasts. I arched into him, my body begging for more. When his mouth closed around me, a cry escaped my lips, echoing in the empty room. His hands gripped my hips, pulling me closer to the edge of the table as his tongue teased, his lips sucking softly. The sensation was overwhelming, every nerve in me alive with pleasure. "Daniel, please," I whispered, not even sure what I was asking for, only that I needed more, needed him. His gaze met mine then, dark and full of heat. "I want you," he said, his voice low, rough with desire. "I've wanted you from the moment I saw you. Say you want this too." My answer came, without hesitation. "I do. I want you." That was all he needed. In one swift motion, he freed himself, and I felt the hard length of him pressing against me. The anticipation made my body tremble, made my breath catch. And then, slowly at first, he pushed inside me. The world seemed to fall away. A moan tore from my throat as I clutched at him, the sensation overwhelming, stretching, filling me completely. His lips found mine again, swallowing my cries as he began to move, slow at first, then faster, each thrust deep, purposeful, claiming me. God, you feel incredible, he groaned against my lips, his pace quickening as my nails dug into his back. The table creaked beneath us, but neither of us cared. Our bodies moved together in a rhythm that felt inevitable, unstoppable, like two forces colliding. My gasps and his groans filled the room, the sound of our passion echoing in the silence. Every thrust built the tension higher, pleasure coiling tightly inside me until I thought I might burst. He seemed to sense it, his hand sliding between us, his fingers finding that sensitive spot that sent shockwaves through my body. "Oh, Daniel!" I cried, my head falling back as wave after wave of ecstasy crashed over me. My body trembled, pulsing around him, every nerve alight with pleasure. He followed soon after, his movements growing erratic as he groaned my name, burying his face against my neck. The heat of his release, the sound of his ragged breathing, the weight of him pressed against me. It was everything. When it was over, we stayed tangled together, both of us gasping for breath, our hearts racing in unison. Slowly, he pulled back just enough to look at me, his forehead resting against mine, his thumb brushing tenderly across my cheek. "You're unforgettable," he whispered softly. I smiled, still breathless, my body warm and sated. "So are you." We sat there in the quiet, the city lights shining through the window, both of us knowing we had crossed a line we could never uncross. But in that moment, none of it mattered. All that mattered was him, me, and the night that had changed everything. As I rested in his arms, I thought to myself, this was supposed to be just another company party. Instead, it became a night I would never forget. Hello, my loves. That brings us to the end of tonight's story. The boss's son, fire forbidden office desire turns into a night she'll never forget. I hope you enjoyed every moment of this passionate tale. If you did, don't forget to subscribe to Tales of Love for more unforgettable stories filled with romance, desire, and everything in between. Until next time, stay in love and keep the passion alive.